it's not a good situation, but you know, yeah, you do your best, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. So yeah, it's hard, but it's a hard sport, and yeah, you know, Grand Tours are not easy. So yeah, you know, we'll hope for some of those teams that haven't won stages yet, including mine, that they can pull it off today. And yeah, I guess any team that wins a stage in the Tour can pretty much be considered a successful race.
This is bad news for DSM in the breakaway. Thankfully, the gap is so big now that he won't be going all the way back to the peloton. But Oscar Onley, who was in the break, the young Scot, alongside Frank van den Broek, who came so close, and well, consider that he had some sort of victory helping Romain Bardet to the win on the opening day. They're the only two guys from DSM in the break. Oscar Onley is going to have to work his way back on. Had to take that front wheel from neutral service. So this is the situation at 130 kilometers to go. 38 seconds to Onley chasing back. 3 minutes and 4 for the peloton. It's been a fast and furious start. Time for me to hand over in the commentary box to Carlton Kirby.
Thank you, Rob. Well, they described the third week of the Tour de France as being extremely difficult, but with a humane start to it. And it has been anything but. Oh, the frenetic start that we had yesterday that seemed to just last the entire stage. And indeed, today, it's done exactly the same. More of the same, you might say. And, well, who's going to bring themselves to the fore today? Well, there are some teams that are desperate for success. We've already indeed posted that. It was a surprise to me to find that Groupama France de Jeux haven't won a Tour de France stage since Thibaut Pinot in 2019 on the Tourmalet. I've been racking my brains trying to think of anybody else who may well have come through, but desperation stakes for them, and finally they've managed to get, well, some pretty handy riders up the road, as you have seen. Mywhoosh and Quentin Pacher are there. Clément Rousseau was having a dig a little bit earlier on today as well. But it's not just them. There are other teams that really desperately need to get something today, and that accounts for the very, very large breakaway group that we have got. If Oscar Onley can get back in, it will number 37. 3 minutes and 2 back to the peloton, and it seems like a little bit of calm is washing over us all. But essentially, we've got two pelotons at the moment. There's a lot of riders up front, and there's bound to be some inconsistencies as to the amount of work that they do amongst themselves. And surely this can't last as a cohesive group to go all the way to the end, no matter what the deficits are overall. So a fight, a battle within the front group. I don't think we'll see any GC action today, as yesterday was such a strange one from Tadej Pogačar, who kicked on. He'll be saving his resources for Isola 2000 and Collioure, the next two stages that will carry us to, of course, ultimately Nice and the time trial. So there's been plenty to talk about so far today. Let's find out about social media from yesterday, shall we, with John?
Think he's signing your name or his name?
I don't know what he's doing.
Did you sign Dylan Groenewegen's name?
Yeah, but I mean, someone wanted me to sign his helmet, and I think that's a bit like over the edge. If they would watch this video, though.
Well, an imposter in the team, as you can see there. And that is what it was like yesterday. Absolutely extraordinary.
You've got it in your legs. You've got it in your mind. And I know that you're ready. Believe in yourselves. Do what you've done until now. And don't be afraid.
Well, they weren't afraid.
Thank you.
And celebrations for the history maker, Richard Carapaz.
Thank you, John. I want Charlie Wigelius to give me a pep talk every day, quite frankly. Clearly they had the belief. Danny, welcome to the commentary box as well. Another crazy start to what was supposed to be our introduction to the Alps today. We're not exactly playing with the very, very high ground. We're sort of rolling towards it, but it's been brutal again.
It has indeed, Carlton. A little bit of respite from the high mountains, but a huge amount of action from the start. And it's just down to so many teams without a stage win, 11. And as Rob said in commentary, 90% of the peloton with the final chance, you could argue, on today's stage. And that is why it has gone bananas. So yeah, now the break has established itself. UAE at the moment not keen, and I don't think they will today. You know, we heard from Sean saying that he was surprised at what they did at the end, or Pogacar did at the end of yesterday's stage, but today is very different. It is a flat finish, slightly uphill for the last 25 kilometers, but very different to yesterday's uphill finish. So yeah, so much fatigue as well in the peloton that will be very, very apparent at the end of today's stage as well. 3,100 meters of elevation, so actually on paper harder than yesterday's stage.
Yeah, I mean, how do you quantify it, Larry? We just never know what to expect, do we?
Yeah, I mean, you never know what to expect, but I think on today's stage you think you know. You definitely assume and hope that they let the breakaway go, and I'm pretty sure they will, So I think, yeah, it's good. There's a big group up the road. We'll see a great battle for the for the stage win from the breakaway. And yeah, I think UAE will be content to set a relatively easy tempo. Obviously it's never easy. They're still going to keep these guys within 10 minutes, but I think most of the guys in the bunch are going to be happy to have an easier than the last couple days, day to day.
I'm just so pleased to see the likes of Kwiatkowski and Michael Matthews up front. Some of the old favourites have polished the gems and indeed are catching the eye at the moment. 125.1 kilometres of the day remaining, and we are on a little climblet yet again. It's a category 3 test that we're just about to deal with, a series of little plateaus like this along the way. It's a spectacular part of the world to exist in, and in fact it's around here that the VTT Tour de France used to take place. Very, very fond memories of it actually in the locale, and Cadel Evans as a teenager back in the 90s. Yeah, what do I
Keyboard's not working.
On Tour de France victory and indeed world champs, and the way he came to the fore back in the day, it was about dogged determination and just keeping yourself pure, and Cadel really did shine brightly, and quite a few dark days, I must say. But we have had, Danny, so many amazing days in this race. It's hard to pick a favourite, quite frankly. Yesterday, I think it was just too animated, really, to count it as a favourite almost. It was uncomfortable watching in a certain sense, wasn't it?
It was unbelievable, wasn't it? And trying to pick it apart was really tough. On the breakaway yesterday after the stage, we kind of referred to the echelons feeling like they were days ago, because so much did happen throughout the stage. The peloton almost split in half. We had that break of 4 up the road, but that's been the narrative of the whole Tour de France so far. I mean, how long ago does the gravel stage feel? It's been absolutely spectacular from start to finish, and I just put out on social media that I have huge respect for everyone in this sport, because it has to be one of the hardest, doesn't it? Not just physically but mentally, to be able to pick yourself up every single day. There'll be so many stories throughout the peloton where riders go through ups and downs, and yesterday would have been one of those where a lot of the peloton would have been thinking, what am I doing here, because this is just brutal. So yeah, I mean, they are putting on a show.
You can tell we're getting close to the mountains because the water colour has changed. We get this limestone wash which picks up the light and turns it into this beautiful sort of bluey green that we're so used to. It's a lovely part of the world, John Harris-Bass.
It is a lovely part of the world. But just looking at this stunning dam and the lake that's formed, Lake Sute. Just one of the, in this part of the world we get loads of these lakes are originally formed by EDF, the national electricity provider, the natural energy provider. An EDF bill being something that you require to get anything in France, anything at all. As you will well remember, Carlton, going in. I would like to get a prescription for the doctors. Where is your phone, where's your EDF bill? I haven't brought it with me, but you learn to bring it with you. 350 hectares here in this lake covers, and it's just that beautiful colour. This part of the sort of foothills, the Alps, is known as the mini Dolomites because of the similarity that you get if you go across the border into Italy, and the Dolomites being just another stunning part of the mountain landscape of Europe.
And the landscape of this tour, or at least today anyway, is about breakaways. You've had some breakaway wins. Today it was almost guaranteed that would be the case. Just passing by Lake Sauté, nothing to do with the potatoes that John will be describing to us a little bit later on. But everyone at the moment just having some snap, as they say, in the north of England. And yeah, I don't know what's in the knapsacks today. Larry, what was your favourite goodie that used to get handed up to you as a treat?
Well, you know, the problem is now we're just so high-tech with everything that it's just gels and more gels. And I would say...
Gummy bears? Tin of Pepsi?
Yeah, after the stage, yes, but not during the stage. So when I'm training, I do like the gummy bears. You know, a little bag of Haribo in the pocket is one of my favorite things to eat. But back in the day, you know, they used to do these waffles. They'd fill them full of Speculoos or Biscoff, and those were probably my favorite, but I can tell you those probably are not the most high-performance energy food. You know, the occasional Snickers bar, something like that, it's awesome. But yeah, unfortunately these days it's really just about what's efficient, what's the highest performance, and yeah, for us it's just carbs, and we even avoid a lot of solids. So you get these bottles that have 80 grams, 100 grams of carbs in them. It's pretty much like drinking syrup. And then, yeah, we just have a bunch of gels. So I'd say it's pretty standard across most teams. Everyone's just trying to get in as many carbs as possible. So it's definitely, unfortunately, a lot less about enjoyment these days and more just about what's the most effective.
What about the rice cakes, Larry? You know, the famous rice cakes that Swan Years make, and they fill them with, you know, a rider's favourite filling. I know a lot of the Italians that I rode with really like the savoury flavours. I always opted for, like you mentioned, speculoos or you know, your chocolate spread type filling. None of that?
You know, unfortunately, a lot of people are avoiding the rice cakes now as we see little sprints.
Yes, exactly. Let's deal with this first. Just getting a little bit elevated. Carapaz is in greedy mode at the moment. I think he's collecting some of the prize money, quite frankly, to try and hand back to the Swannies, who may well have some options on the prize money. Did Loscano beat him to the line there? Quite sure.
Looks like it.
Looks like it, yeah. So a little bit of chit-chat. Sorry about that. I interrupted you.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no. So the thing is,
chat.
Unfortunately, even a lot of the rice cakes have started to disappear because it's even sometimes now it's hard to quantify exactly how many carbs are in each one. So yeah, everyone's like, okay, I need to hit 120 grams an hour or 100 grams an hour, and just having something that has the exact number, 40 grams of carbs, 30 grams of carbs, people prefer that to even eating these rice cakes. But at home in training, you know, a lot of us, we do I make my own rice cakes. I even experimented going into mochi this year. I started to make my own mochi, which to my training partners that I gave, you know, my test samples to, they approved. But yeah, it's pretty much, we just go for unfortunately, the simple, efficient gels and, you know, gel chews and stuff. So
I love the way that Larry has just started a food line.
You know, I
live
will
on
say,
television.
When I did make these mochi, I was like, wow, these are actually really good. I was impressed with myself, and I was like, maybe I could sell this, you know. So we'll see if there's any food suppliers that want to help me develop this product. I'm open.
Here's Binny back at the medical car, a car that you are allowed to hang on to as long as the doctors feel it's appropriate. And as you can see from his fall, he's still carrying a few bumps and bruises. Thankfully, it hasn't diminished its power, it seems, and lack of stress today when it comes to the intermediate sprint, because the breakaway is away and his nearest rival, Jesper Philipsen, is not part of it. So stress relief, I guess, apart from anything else as he gets back to the medical car. We hope that he will be okay for tomorrow, because there will be a dash for the cash as far as the sprinters are concerned at the very very early part of the morning, because the first action point of the day is a sprint which comes after about 30 k's.
Yeah, no stress whatsoever for Vinny there, just getting some assistance from the medical car after that crash, but a really strong performance from him yesterday to take those points ahead of Jasper Philipsen. They were battling it out between them, and I think it's fair to say now for Biniam that as long as he stays on his bike and makes it to Nice, he will be taking that green jersey home. So spectacular performance from him throughout this tour. And also just going back to those KOM points, Carlton, just having a look down the point standings for that. Richard Carapaz and Oya Lascano, who were going for those just earlier on, are 1 point separated at 35 and 34, 5th and 6th respectively. So that might be also something that they've got their eye on, you know, with the high mountains and more points up for grabs in the next few days.
Yeah, some modest points up for grabs today, but still 3 more climbs to be contested, both category 3. So yeah, humble points maybe, but certainly for the King of the Mountains competition, why not finish on the podium of that particular jersey? I don't think they've got a chance of getting back at Tadej Pogačar with the high ground still to come. Remco Evenepoel sits in 3rd place on 42 points, Vingegaard on 58, and Tadej Pogačar on 77. But yes, explains the animation.
I guess you, yeah.
Just saying, Oscar Onley, just off the back here, I don't think it's exhaustion. I think, mind you, it wouldn't be surprising, to be honest, Larry, after yesterday, would it? If he did find himself a little bit second-hand.
I mean, the problem is, actually, I was looking at that, was, you know, he got that flat tire, and unfortunately didn't have the car behind him. So he got a Shimano spare wheel, which is not ideal. You know, it's not the wheel that he'd be riding. It's not the tire he's riding.
I guess worst case scenario is when you're on a big long descent as well, and you've got an imbalance between a neutral service wheel and indeed the stock wheel that you're used to for the bike, because they have different grip levels just naturally, surely.
And the problem is you don't know what pressure they use, so maybe they use more pressure than you have, and you know, the pressure makes a huge difference in these tires. And if you're going down a descent, yeah, you're going to be scared when you don't know what it's on. And yeah, so I'm hurting for Oscar Onley. We haven't seen him on camera, but you can see the time gap just going between. He got to about 20 seconds, but it looked like he maybe cracked a bit on the top of that climb there. So, you know, it's too bad. I think, you know, if you have a mechanical like that, I think you should be allowed to just join back into the breakaway without, you know, essentially having to fight for it totally alone in no man's land. But it looks like he's maybe exploding.
I'm afraid so. Having that task, I mean, having had his mechanical, it did get to 20 seconds. It's now back out to 57 on the last part of that climb. I'm just wondering if it's worth the candle today after going crazy yesterday, as they have here with the bunting, I must admit. Terrific. John, it's a little bit quiet, so it seems an ideal time for us to open up your lunch bag.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Carlton. Why not? Yesterday, you did miss out on a real treat by not opening up the lunch bag, but I'm not going to hold it against you. I did poêlée de gambas yesterday, which I'm not as good as my duck, which is still the winner so far in this year's tour. And I had a bit of a disastrous brioche episode earlier this week, which will not be making it onto the Instagram page. I might have another go later this evening.
Did it come out like a puddle?
No, it was actually, it just didn't rise, and so it came. Yeah, no, a puddle would mean that it was very liquidy. It came out as a very dense brick. The sort you could actually probably involve in a Cluedo game. Mrs. White killing Reverend Green or Professor Black or whatever in the kitchen with a solid brioche. So today's recipe is pork belly with a tarragon sauce. Now, most people would not associate pork with tarragon, but actually it went surprisingly well. It's a creamy sauce, a bit of creme fraiche, bit of milk, make your roux, add your tarragon and some seasoning, and then griddle your pork belly, serve with mash and some mange tout, and very, very delicious. So that's today's recipe. That, along with all of the other recipes, including the poêlée de gambas from yesterday, can be found on Instagram at JHB Foodie Cyclist. Yeah, they're all there for your enjoyment.
Can't wait, John. Thank you very much. We'll remind people what they can find on your website when they come back and rejoin us. I didn't realise we were disengaged. Then you're just about to come and join us once more. Just under 118 kilometres of the day remaining. 3 minutes and 52 is the Like to saute, those of you who've been away. I've missed John's recipe for today. It's pork belly. He saved it just for me. Don't know why. But if you wish to indeed enjoy it, then at JHB Foodie Cyclist, I believe, is the website, John.
That's correct. Instagram at JHB Foodie Cyclist. That's where you'll find all of the recipes for this year's Tour de France. Just 3 to go now.
And, well, 1 to go is, I'm afraid, Oscar Onley from the breakaway. He is now over a minute down and heading back to capture, I think, from the peloton. We're at a margin of 3 minutes and 54. I don't know what went on here, but it looks like somebody's dumped some pallets and some roof joists as well. Actually, I need one of those. It's a bit of a long way. 3 minutes and 51. We're going to be hearing from Michael Matthews. I'm so pleased he's up the road. Danny, we all have our little quiet favourites, and I'm really pleased, to be honest, after his mojo seemed to have been lost, that Michael Matthews is up front.
Yeah, me too. And they've had a win, haven't they, so far with Dylan Groenewegen. But Michael Matthews has got a very good chance today. The terrain suits him. The finale is a very fast bike rider. And he does seem to be back at his best, doesn't it? So it'd be great to hear what he's got to say now.
Indeed. Let's catch up with him. Or we did at the beginning of the day.
Looking at today's profile, Michael, it does have your name written all over it.
Yeah, it does. I was just saying in an interview before, it's stage 18, so everyone's on their hands and knees. We've been fighting sort of every stage with Jayco Alula to try and go for a stage win. We got one. We were really close yesterday, so the morale is high. So yeah, we'll try for another one today.
Is it all in for yourself, or will you try and use Simon again today, given the profiles?
Well, I think we'll have to be around, to be honest. With the peloton showing yesterday how everyone wants to be in the breakaway, yeah, if we just try with one person, it's going to be very difficult. So, yeah, I think we'll have to try with multiple guys and then see who we can get in there.
And it must mean a lot as well that Dylan's hanging around to try and help facilitate you guys getting in the breakaway.
Yeah, definitely. It's always good to have a guy like him bouncing around and covering some moves. Probably not a day for him to be in the breakaway himself, but yeah, definitely trying to help out and give us other guys a bit of a break when we can is definitely appreciated.
And physically, how are you feeling?
Well, I've felt better, to be honest. I'm sort of just trying to drag everything out of my body that I have left in me. It's been a roller coaster over Tour de France for sure. Not my best, that's for sure. Form-wise, everything, it's not been my best. So, yeah, hopefully today we can try and turn that around. But yeah, we'll see.
Good luck today. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You know, Larry, even 1% off your best means a big degradation in what you have to offer. And poor old Michael, he was talking about he was wondering why he had a problem. I don't think he had COVID. I don't think he was one of the COVID people. But he said about his wisdom teeth at the beginning of the race, and just any little thing, quite frankly, that might or might not require, I don't know, antibiotics. Who knows? Anything can actually knock your performance when you're a very, very cutting-edge athlete, like all pro cyclists are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about that and how earlier in this race he really struggled, and he said his wisdom teeth were coming through. He thought about getting them out before the race, but it was maybe a bit too late. And yeah, I mean, it's not easy. You know, the Tour de France already, you do everything to be your 100% best. Everyone's going to altitude. Everyone's doing everything to the max, and yeah, the margins, they're really small. Okay, yes, you have Tadej, you have Jonas, who are maybe superior to most, but like between almost everyone in the bunch, you know, it's less than 1%. And these things that can take, they can take a few percent away. And you know, I even think personally in the Giro this year, I was feeling really, really good the first 2 weeks, and the last week I came down with a bit of this sickness that most of the guys had, and it took it out of me. And I noticed, like, I went from feeling like, you know, one of the stronger guys in the bunch and always being there when it was a small group to I really struggled, and I fought, and it hurts your breathing, it hurts this, it hurts that, and just being off 1-2%, it can take you from the front to the back of the race, and you need every percent you can get in these races.
I think it can work both ways as well, because we've seen the likes of Michael Matthews, Simon Yates, who was great yesterday, being sick or having issues at the start of the tour. And if they do that, then they're actually saving a lot of energy because they'll be trying to duck and dive whilst not feeling great. And actually it can mean that they come out of the back of that and in the third week can look great. Michael Matthews, this is his 8th Tour de France, so he's experienced in how to look after himself through the entirety of a 3-week stage race. He has had a solid season as well, so you know, I think he's got a great shot today, and he'll know how to kind of turn himself around psychologically and put him in the best possible position to win the stage as he can.
Yeah, I definitely think there is a lot to be said for that, that if you are sick at the start, there is the potential to come around at the end. And I think back to one of my teammates, Ben O'Connor, when he wasn't on our team before, he was on NTT some years ago. And I remember in the Giro, and it was in 2020, and he was really struggling. The first week, he ended up getting food poisoning. I don't know, you know, he hardly could eat, and he was probably one of the last finishers on some of the days. And then in the last week of the race, he was flying, and I think that almost forced recovery. Not that you can recover during a stage race, but you know, force sort of going as easy as you possibly can help you at the end. And yeah, in the end, he was second on one of the hardest stages and then won another one. So, you know, I think it really shows that it's possible. Yeah, it's not easy. You have to fight, you have to struggle through it, but if you come out the other side, you can come out actually maybe even better for it.
Well, Danny, just as we dwell on Jesper Philipsen, just homing in on him at the moment, it doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a challenge today. They've just got to get themselves through and then deal with the intermediate sprints, presumably starting tomorrow before the high ground comes. Yeah, just back to your point, Danny and Larry. Yeah, Mark Cavendish looked absolutely terrible, Danny, on the opening day. I must admit, all kinds of fears. I wasn't sure whether it was illness or what. His Oscar Onley, I'm afraid, who's caught in no man's land and indeed will be collected. He's at 3 minutes, so he's looking over his shoulder. Just ill fortune, I think, for Oscar, and then caught out at the wrong time in the wrong part of the parcours. But yeah, just Mark Cavendish, what a recovery it was for him as well. We thought the end was nigh, and then all of a sudden he gets 35 on stage 5 just 4 days later.
We did, and more for us really. We should have had more faith in him, shouldn't we? 24 Grand Tours, his 15th Tour de France, and he said he wasn't stressed at all in that situation. They had a plan, they stuck to it, they made the time cut, and look how that you know, played out at the end with that fantastic Project 35 being ticked off on stage 5. So yeah, I've got no worries about Mark Cavendish, especially on a day like today. Okay, on the high mountains, we saw him, you know, making the time cut by what, 3 minutes on Plateau de Bay, and we've got really, really tough climbs to come with La Bornette and Isola 2000, just to name a couple of them. But Mark Cavendish will not go out without a fight. He wants to get to Nice. It means so much to him. He honours the race. He's very, very proud to be part of the team, and he wants to play a little part in that, you know, for his teammates for the remainder of this tour. So he'll be fighting all the way.
Yeah, one thing I do actually find interesting about that is, yeah, I guess, you know, one of the days when they were close to the time limit, everyone said, oh no, you know, they were really close, they were on the limit, but they actually, everything's calculated. And, you know, I know from the Giro last year, one of my good friends, you know, he was riding with Mark, and he said, yeah, just they have a set pacing strategy, and when they hit the first climb, they stick to their strategy, and if that means they go out the back, they go out the back, and they just stick to their plan. And yeah, they're confident that, you know, they know the pace that is going to be ridden at the front, or whatever's the fastest pace that can be ridden, and as long as they stick to their strategy, they'll save the most energy, they'll be within the time limit. And yeah, and we see Jonas here changing his shoe, a little bit unconventional, but I guess sometimes you can have some issues. So yeah, just on the fly, easy to do.
Yeah, I've had to do that actually in a race before, change my shoe. The fastening is broken, but it's I guess an important point to mention. Every single rider will have a spare pair of shoes in the car just in case. So
and if you don't, you're in trouble.
You are.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's the day it's going to happen, isn't it?
Exactly.
Wonderful to see Frank van den Broek, actually, who was the star, one of the stars of the opening day, as Binny continues with the netting on the right-hand side of his body. Let's hear from Adam Blythe, shall we?
Good news, guys. I've made it across to the breakaway, and on my way across, I stopped and spoke to Oscar Onley. Now, I'm not really allowed to speak to the rider, so it's off air, but I asked him, are you okay? He said, ah, man, I'm gutted. I made it in the break, and I just couldn't get there. He had bottles in his back. He was asking what I was having for lunch, because I was just having a sandwich at the time. But he's okay, going back to the peloton. He's going to cruise through. He's almost at the finish of this Tour de France, but, man, when you get into a breakaway like today, you've got to feel sorry for him. And in other news, I've got a hole in my trousers, and I don't know if you can see that. Can you see it there? I put sun cream on it this morning, and it started to burn, so I've had to use tissue to stop my leg getting burnt, and the tissue keeps coming out, so it's not a great day for me either. It's not as important as Oscar Onley's day, but it's not gone well. Back to you guys.
Do you know what? Ahead of sartorial elegance, it's a big deal for him.
It is. We all know how much Adam Blythe puts an importance on fashion. So tissue in the whole of his jeans, he won't be happy with today. But I mean, better than a patch of sunburn, you would imagine.
The hard-hitting the health concerns of Adam Blythe.
What I love as well is the way that Oscar Onley asked him what he was having for lunch, because he was obviously clearly chewing, and I think Oscar probably wanted a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Oscar Onley, 21 years old, such an effort yesterday, was it? We had an interview from him, and he was empty, totally depleted of energy, and that's what I think, you know, comes in your first Tour de France, but he will be a star of the future, I'm sure.
Oh, I still think he's a star of the now, because, I mean, he's impressed me so many times. You know, we saw even before he turned pro, he was at the Croatia race a few years ago, the only guy capable of following Jonas Vingegaard, and I mean, he's next level. You know, we've seen in the races, he's so strong, and even this year, I think he broke his collarbone 2 or 3 times or something, and to be back on the line of the Tour de France already with all of that at his age, it's insane. So I think he's a really classy rider, and we're going to see some really big things from him to come.
The voice of Larry Warbass, of course, from Decathlon AG Tour La Mondiale. Great to have him on board, part of our team here. He joined myself, Carlton Kirby, and Danny Rowe. And Sean Kelly's just finishing off his own lunch. He'll be back a little bit later on. 4 minutes and 25 is the gap at the moment, and it looks like a little bit of easement. Kevin Vauquelin, winner of stage 2. We were mentioning stage 1. What a start it was for France, with Bardet taking it and just encouraging Frank van den Broek, who was up the road and probably instilling quite a bit of belief. We talk about Oscar Onley, the youngster. Also in that young ranking is Frank van den Broek. It is, of course, the white jersey. That is a competition that is led by Remco Evenepoel. But the young men who come here, it's the same with any young rider in any race. When it's your debut, especially on a big one, Danny, it's huge. And Frank van den Broek, it would have been a real nerve settler for him to be so lauded by Bardet on the opening day. And here he is again in the break.
I mean, they were a force to be reckoned with, weren't they, on that first day? It was an outstanding performance from Frank van den Broek. And he's another one that's shown a huge amount of potential for the future, and one that we will all keep our eyes on.
Yeah, it's forever going to be on his palmarès, runner-up on the opening stage of the Tour de France. And what a way for France to open its account. Groupama haven't joined them yet, but maybe today. Well, the speeds have wiped right back to 28 kilometres per hour. What was the average pace that we had yesterday? It was unholy, wasn't it?
I think it was something like 47.8,
yeah, I
which
think it was.
Is unreal, especially when you consider they had 3,000 meters of climbing. So, yeah, not doing that in training, that's for sure.
Julien Bernat, one of the smiling podium when it came to the French Championships. Didn't take the title, of course. That was beautifully fought for and taken by Paul Lapera. That must be something as well. He was a late call to the team as well, wasn't he, Larry? Paul, I guess the tricolour had to be displayed.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he was definitely on the long list, and I think after his performances this spring, he's definitely someone they were considering, you know, to go for stage wins. You know, he was 5th in the Amstel Gold Race. He won a stage of Tour of the Basque Country, among some other victories. So he's definitely been coming into his own this year after, yeah, a few years. Sorry.
You got to stay sharp, because you already see the games that are going on in the front.
It's funny, yeah, they're talking about the games going on in the front, but actually, from what we've seen, actually, we haven't seen a whole bunch of these games, but yeah, you can see some of these guys we haven't seen before coming to the front, so clearly that means, yeah, there's maybe a bit of stress up there. Some guys aren't rolling through, and yeah, it's a tricky situation when you get this many guys in the breakaway.
I guess the pace that as well that's being set by the nose of the break just for the time being won't be to the liking of everybody. It's a balance, isn't it, Danny? How much you put into it?
Yeah, it is a balance, and there is obviously a solid pace being set behind from UAE. It looks like Niels Pollert, who is a rider that's had a phenomenal tour, hasn't he? The way he's been climbing, I think he led the whole of the peloton over the entirety of the Tourmalet. But again, they're not going to be worried. 4.5 minutes, the gap. I think this break will go all the way to the line today. They just don't want it to let it get too far out at this stage. You know, as Larry said, the problem is the size of that break up front, that you can't really ride in total cohesion. There'll be riders ducking and diving, missing turns on the front, and that's when the games can start. So you just have to be aware of that, and you're trying to do as little work as the person doing the least in a break. You have to be very, very clever, but at the same time, obviously open up the gap to give yourself the best opportunity of it being successful.
Playing with the Valley at the moment, a cross tailwind is what they're enjoying just for the time being. It looks unstressed, but whenever we say that, all of a sudden it kicks off, and it may well do. Particularly in the breakaway. We've already heard some transmissions from the teams saying that there's some games being played up front, and make sure you find yourself in the right place. Well, we shall find out what that right place is going to be. We have an intermediate sprint coming up. I don't think it'll be that feistily contested, but we shall see. .5 kilometres from home. We've got a 4.5 minute gap now. And as you can see from the bounce of the peloton at the moment, UAE kind of doing their duty. Ineos sitting here just waiting to fold over should indeed their man or men out front be compromised on the day. Geraint Thomas, who was very busy at the top of the day, and indeed Mikkel Kwiatkowski, who it's great to see him up front, I must admit. Probably a downhill run would have been something that Geraint Thomas might have actually favoured today, but Kwiato would probably have wanted it a little bit more difficult at the end of the day. But Danny, you can't make a tick list on a menu, can you? You've got to play the game with which you've got to play the cards on the game you're given.
Yeah, and you've got to look at the terrain, and you know, we just said about it not kicking off yet, but it absolutely will in that break ahead, because there's going to be a lot of riders that will not want to take Wout van Aert to the line, because he is the fastest in that group out front, and it is a flat finish. So you're going to get the climbers within that group trying to do what they can to make it as hard as possible on the climb, and picking their moment and an opportunity to take the stage win.
I was fearful actually that X had missed it, but they have Tobias Johannesson up the road, so they've got a card to play, and that's quite an ace in the pack, I must admit. There's a real mixture as well here that we're kind of wondering where success might come from. If you're going to deny, well, how do you deny Wout van Aert? What's the battle plan if that's the major threat?
Yeah, I think you have to be a really canny rider today if you want to win.
You probably have to be Mathieu van der Poel, actually. He's not here.
Yeah, potentially.
in the break, yeah.
I think, you know, there's two options. If you're someone with a quick sprint, then yeah, you look to a guy like Wout van Aert. So, you know, my pick for today was Aram Baru. I'm glad to see that he got in the breakaway. While I hope my teammates can beat him, I think he'll be one to watch. You know, but if I'm, say, you know, a rider like Jai Hindley, obviously I have to go long. You know, you're going to see, I think, probably even on the second to last climb of the day, which comes around 50K to go, you know, I think we're going to 50, 60K. We're going to see already attacks there. There's going to be the climbers going for it, and it's going to be a well-rounded rider who rode a really smart race, conserved as much energy as he could, and yeah, has a decent kick at the end, because I don't think anyone's going to the line alone. And if they're alone, they go alone in the last 3K.
Let's see, the terrain kind of begs it. We could do with another peak just before the last, but let's see how it's taken, because, Danny, it could be a battle of attrition, this, from the group out front. I'm sure it will be. I can't see 36 all coming to the line for a mass sprint, essentially, from the break.
No, absolutely not. 36 riders will not be coming to the line, and as Larry said, it will be the climbers trying to look for their opportunities on the remainder of the climbs we've got left today, and the penultimate one being the longest, so that would be their biggest opportunity to try something, and that's around 7.5 kilometers and tops out at about 58 kilometers to go. One small one, you know, before that 25-kilometer slight uphill drag to the finish. So you have to play your cards right, duck and dive when you can, and look for the best terrain to give you that opportunity to attack. There's also quite a technical run into the line. They come off a main road with 8 kilometers to go, so there could be that last ditch attack from one of the kind of more classics type riders, rouleurs, that look to do something there if Wout van Aert is still intact, because you just cannot take him to the line.
Total Energy is coming through. They're well represented up front. 4 riders.
Allez les gars, on va se concentrer aujourd'hui à faire les choses bien, se concentrer sur le jeu, et on va écrire l'histoire à nouveau.
There we are. Just keep the concentration levels where they should be. 10 kilometres time, we've got an intermediate sprint. Pace has actually just picked up a little bit, I must admit. We're at 41 kilometres per hour. We'd ebbed down to around about 30 not that long ago while they were coming through the feed. We spoke to Geraint Thomas at the beginning of the day, and these are his thoughts right now for you.
It's been a tough tour for the squad so far. You've still got Carlos up there, but you've lost Quieto today. How is the mood in the team?
Yeah, it's good. I think lost Tom, you mean, right?
Yes.
I was thinking then, geez, he's just in sign-on. But no, it's all about just staying positive in the group, really, giving it 100% every day and just giving it your best. Because obviously, yeah, like you say, it has been tough. You know, the history of the team, we're used to a lot of success in this race, particularly. Yeah, sometimes, you know, you get on that roll and it just sort of works out everything you do. You can't do anything wrong, you know, it just happens. And then other times it's kind of the opposite and it kind of feels a bit like that. But it's, you know, keep doing the right things and do everything you can. And as I say, give 100%, that's all you can do. But still three big days to go. We'll try and do all we can, get as much out of it as we can. And yeah, that's it, innit?
Today looks like a day for the break, and you're in the move yesterday. You caught the Jura in your legs. It's the first time you've done the double. How are you feeling physically this deep in to the tour?
Yeah, tired, definitely tired. It's one of them as well. When you're in it, you just keep talking yourself up and you get up for it every day. But I think next week will definitely hit me. But yeah, I think obviously sickness and stuff in the camp doesn't exactly help. But yeah, it's as I say, yesterday I was definitely feeling it. I was on the radio, I was like, boys, I don't have the legs here, but you have to keep trying, and ended up in that move and did what I could for Dupluski, and yeah.
Again, trying to get in the move today again and just see how you feel. I guess that's the attitude to keep going for, isn't it?
Yeah, I think with a breakaway like this, like obviously I think today will be a bit easier, or more if you've got legs, it's easier to go than on the flat. But yeah, I think the way the peloton is, everyone wants to be in it. I think we need all hands on deck basically to be around and following stuff. So I'll get in and help the boys, and hopefully the one I follow doesn't go.
Cheers. Have a good one, G.
Nice one. Cheers.
Do you know, he's such a lovely bloke. He's an open book, isn't he, Geraint? And even when he's busy correcting you for whatever reason, he's in such a nice way.
Yeah, we absolutely love Geraint, don't
Yeah.
we? And it's been, you know, a pleasure to be, you know, be on the journey with him. Live in South Wales, so yeah, he's brilliant. And he says truthfully, you know, I'm going to go for the break. Hopefully the one that I go in won't stick. He said before, you know, a couple of stages in, he was sold the dream coming to the tour, you know, being that domestique for the team, and it's been brutal from start to finish. He questions modern racing time and time again, doesn't he? And what's happened within the peloton now, being so fast from start to finish. But he's doing a great job today. He's turned things around. He did have COVID. He's tested positive and been racing with COVID, so that hasn't been ideal. He also actually had his wisdom tooth out just before the tour. He came down from altitude and said he felt absolutely shocking, and then had to, yeah, get his wisdom tooth out just before coming to the Grand Depart. So he's had to battle with a couple of things, not perfect preparation. But he's a leader. He's, you know, would be captain of the team. Laurens de Plus had a great stage yesterday, 4th on the stage, and they'll be trying to set things up again today.
102.3 kilometres then of the day. Stretched out the gap now, nudging up towards the 5-minute mark, and I feel that there's a general acceptance by those who are chasing in that they're going to put something back into their legs, the GC riders. Larry, there's 2 hellish days to come directly on the back of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching these next 2 days. I don't know how much all the riders in the bunch are looking forward to doing it, but yeah, I mean, tomorrow we have 3 massive cols. Yeah, one of the highest roads in Europe with Col de la Bonnette, and a really, really hard finish that I know quite well at Isola 2000. So it's not an easy final climb. It'll be almost 40 minutes long, or yeah, probably shorter for the best guys. But yeah, then the day after is just absolutely brutal. It's on all my home training roads, but I can tell you that all the climbs are very hard, and it's going to be really hot. So we'll see a lot of action these next 2 days, and it'll be, yeah, great to watch.
Well, I can't wait, actually. I mean, the descent alone off the Col de la Bonnette is itself extraordinarily scary. Well, it's about 40 kilometres in length. John, I've got to ask you about this mountain. This is the Perron, the Banque de Perron, and it looks like there's some snow in the hollows up at the top. If you want a snowball fight, you've got to climb for it.
It does look like that. I'm just wondering, though, if it's a little bit like the Bald Mountain or Mont Ventoux, that we've got that sort of moonscape chalk at the top. I'm not entirely sure. The only notes about the Perron Bank that there are in the vast Bible of notes about the Tour de France is the Perron Bank or the Petit Chaillot, and that is its alternative name, and it's 2,777 metres high, and that, I'm afraid, is all I can tell you about it. But we're sweeping through the valley that lies beneath it, the Champsour Valley, and that really is quite beautiful. Very, very popular with the farmers down here, as we've seen by all of the livestock in the fields.
Indeed, I've been hearing them as well. Remarkable from the helicopter. Here we are. They've gone to art shots because it's the phony war at the moment, because this will kick off. They've already issued their warnings to the teams. Make sure that you don't get caught out by a sudden snap decision to attack the day. Whether that's going to come from the likes of Richard Carapaz, I don't think the ground's high enough for him today. I think he's possibly working for Ben Healy, returning the favours. That would be a nice thing, wouldn't it?
It would be really nice for Ben Healy to have a shot. And to be fair to him, the stage he took in Slovenia was quite a similar parkour to today's stage. He will obviously be inspired by Richard Carapaz yesterday. They came into the Tour, 8 leaders, 8 opportunities, so maybe it could be Ben's today.
Yeah, I think that's something I would like to see Carapaz give back to Ben, because it did look like he had Healy to thank yesterday for bringing his group back early on, and yeah, straight past the front group there. So, you know, but it's interesting to see when you look at sort of the back of these groups. You know, I see my teammate Dorian Godon doesn't look like he's been doing a whole lot, which is smart for the final. But even Ben Healy, you know, the last days we've seen him in the breaks, he's been driving it, he's been riding, he's been pushing the pace and really giving a lot, and I think it's actually good to see he's being pretty conservative here at the moment, because he's going to need to save his energy for the finals. So there's some of these guys. There's Raul Garcia Pierna from Arkea. He's someone to watch out for an attack at the end. I don't even think I've seen him touch the front. So some of these guys, I'm sure his fellow breakmates will be annoyed, but it's probably the smart move to do here.
I want to see Victor Campenaerts launch it from a hellish distance and just break everybody. He's on his own, he's got no teammates around him. Remco Evenepoel indicating something to the car. Is he after some ice? You want an ice bag? Oh, refresher, here it is. Right now. He's got to make sure that he doesn't let the nylon sock he's just taken out interfere with anything. Welcome back. The desperate search for a little bit of cooling respite on a day that looks quite warm, I must admit. We've been nudging around the 30s indeed for the last couple of days, and because we're playing in the valleys, it's sort of intensified. Been a lot of rain, unseasonably so, and a lot of northern Europe, of which we include France, of course, and around the alpine areas, which is why it's so verdant. Here's Rob Heiss. I don't know whether this is just clearing a nose, I imagine. I hope that's what it is.
Maybe a nosebleed. Yeah, you never
possibly.
know, do you?
Just never know. Used to seeing it in preparation for the time trial. A little bit of menthol on some cotton wool, Danny. Seeing that in a couple of days.
Yeah, maybe. Going back to Remco though, it was such a solid performance yesterday, wasn't it? And he's just riding with such maturity. You're seeing him now just getting onto the back of the peloton. I'm wondering how things are going to go in the next few days, whether he's going to look forward now instead of looking behind. It's been a real show of greatness from Remco.
We're going to join Adam Blythe on the bike.
So I'm here with Sepp Van Mark. Sepp, you're just recently out of the peloton. You've been in these situations before. What are you telling your riders in the breakaway today with all the different capabilities in that break? Richard Carapaz, Wout van Aert.
Yeah, it's a special situation now because the course is very variating. So, I mean, we know how our ride is feeling. So we try to give the good advice, first of all, to be smart because there's big names in the front. Carapaz won yesterday, there's Wout van Aert. So they have to be smart at the moment.
And for you personally, is there one point on today's route that you're looking at for a good moment?
I think that's already behind. They had to be in the break and they made it. So now we focus on the final.
And who is your favourite in the group today for the win, apart from your riders?
Yeah, I think Wout van Aert has good cards to play. He has one teammate, so that will be important. I think Lascano and Victor Campenaert are really guys who can race aggressive in the final.
Good luck out there. Thank you very much, Seb.
Everyone's pondering the format of the breakaway. I'm just wondering, I wonder if we might get a surprise. Someone like Jörg Zimmermann came very, very close last year, didn't he? Tour de France. I can't remember. Peo Bilbao it was that I've just been reminded, thanks PCS. Peo Bilbao just denying George Zimmermann in the run to Issoire. That was a downhill run. Peo Bilbao, absolute king when it comes to downhills. But that turned out to be a rather short sprint amongst those who were up front, including Esteban Chavez. Ben O'Connor was there. Chris Narnitz as well. So here we go. We are still at our intermediate sprint point. Points certainly worth taking. So no rollover here. And Michael Matthews, he was very interested as he denied Biniam Girmay for some green jersey points. I think apart from anything else, he wants to remind us that he is still alive and kicking, isn't he?
He is indeed. We did question why
he
was going for that intermediate sprint point, didn't we? I'm not sure myself.
I don't think he's quite sure either, to be honest. He didn't get any stick for it, however. You know, these competitions, they're open to everybody. And Michael Matthews, it was his dogged determination in his battle to deny Marcel Kittel. I think he got inside Kittel's head, didn't he, in that battle for green. Kittel won multiple stages the year that Michael Matthews took the green jersey. But he just kept chipping away. It was a never say die attitude. Just made sure that he was going to take any points that he could along the way. And it absolutely freaked Marcel out. And guess what? Michael Matthews went for it. There's also prize money, as Sean is pointing out to me right now. €1,500 for the intermediate sprint. That's a party back at base, Larry.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, I do think it is something. If you're in the breakaway and no one's going for it, you're like, wow, I might as well, you know, just get a little bit of extra prize money for everyone. But it's not something that you're really thinking about as an objective. It's just kind of like, oh, it could be a nice bonus. So it is interesting to see, though, that there's a little split in the group just after that sprint. And it's something that you just, when you're in these huge groups like this, you really have to pay attention. Because if you do float to the back, if you know, catch yourself sleeping a little bit, the group can split a acceleration for a sprint, a KOM point, and on these big groups you really have to pay attention, because like we see here, Jai Hindley making the sprint to go across, you know, those are just efforts that you don't want to have to make. You don't want to have to waste unnecessary energy if you don't have to do it. So yeah, we can see there are some guys a little more attentive than others, and you know, it's a gamble. So if you're going to go to the back, you can try to save some energy, but you can lose it as well. So yeah, it's tough, these breakaways.
Campenaert's just making sure that he's to the fore. The only way he's going to win it, I think, is to go very, very long, and he wouldn't mind a select group to be able to indeed do it. Time for some feeds. Kwiatkowski taking his knapsack rather well. Remember, always take it where the the strings meet the bag, because otherwise you start getting a little bit of musette swing, and the last thing you want there is to be brought down by your own feed. It happens, doesn't it?
It definitely happens. You know, it's funny, but people don't really talk about it. The feed zone can be a very dangerous place on occasion, and you know, some guys miss the bottles, some guys miss the bags, and then you just kind of have these flying grenades going through the peloton, and yeah, oftentimes we do end up seeing crashes in the feed zone.
There seems to be a bit of purpose here, Danny, about the pace on the front, and a little bit of worriment within the group. As you can see, they're zigzagging here, just trying to get the best draft over to the front group, which is just gently forming at the moment. 8 or 10 riders, certainly the ones with most purpose. Attacking in a feed zone is not the done thing, but I don't know, take your chances where you can, I guess.
They're not attacking here, but
No.
I think it was clear that Michael Matthews just wanted that cohesion again. After that intermediate sprint, we saw him kind of using a hand reference to signal to keep riding through, swap off at the front to get that, you know, the cohesion back into this group, the speed back up again, and I think that's all that was there through the feed as well.
There are always, there always seems to be a pecking order that slowly but surely establishes itself. Just how much credence do the young riders give to the more seniors these days? We don't really have a patron. I think the last one, I mean, gosh, it's been a while, hasn't it? Since there was somebody that garnered the full respect of everyone around them. These days, it's by your deeds rather than your words, isn't it, out there?
Yeah, and I think you always have a dominant rider, sorry Larry, you know, that kind of motivator, usually the one with more experience and authority to, you know, control a breakaway like this and try and keep it as cohesive as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's true. Once you're in the breakaway, though, I don't think you're too concerned about what anyone's saying to you. I'm sure if, you get yelled at by Wout van Aert, you might feel a little worse about it than some other guys, but yeah, it's true. I mean, it's something that people say a lot, but yeah, I guess you can say there's less respect in the peloton these days, but I think, everyone is everyone's on a level playing field, and everyone just goes for the best for themselves, and I don't think that's a bad thing either.
I don't think so either. I think Fabian Cancellara was probably the last patron.
Yes, he was a patron.
he got short shrift towards the end of his run in that role. Said no respect out there. Heading for a break. When we come back, you'll be hearing the voice of Rob Hadge. 5.5 minutes. Gosh. Well, here we are. It's kind of station holding by Ineos Grenadiers, just in case if this gap is going to be expunged. It's not happened just yet, but there we are. 5.5 minute mark as they come through the intermediate sprint. It wasn't overly contested, but €1,500 was there to be picked up, and Michael Matthews said, well, nobody else wants it. I'm certainly going to have a go. You do collect, yeah. Is there at the end of the year that you get your prize money? I know that in Preems, in smaller races, it's actually handed over on the day.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times it's the year after, and it takes a while. Sometimes, occasionally, races just don't ever even pay it out. But then they have issues. But I wouldn't say prize money is something we count on too much. For sure, if you're in a team like UAE and you win the Tour de France, then that can be something significant. But by the time it gets to us, a lot of times it's taxed here or there or a couple times and divided in a million different ways, that it's not really something we are thinking about that much. It can be like a nice little extra spending money at the end of the year, but it's not something as significant as you would imagine, and unfortunately it comes very delayed. So I remember when I was in under 23, we would sometimes just get cash at the finish line, and that was awesome. You know, I remember I think we were second overall in the Tour de Aosta, and we won I don't know how many stages, and we just got each like $500 or €500 bills, and we just thought it was the greatest thing on earth. So unfortunately no more cash at the finish line, but yeah, so very, very delayed prize money.
Well, my finish line, or at least the first of them, has just arrived. It's time to hand over to Rob Hatch as we catch up with the points that were garnered at that last intermediate sprint.
Thank you very much, Carlton. Just under 90 Ks to go. Michael Matthews taking those 20 points.
Oh yeah, what up, bud? I just saw your message. How are you? How are you?
What an exciting start that was. And they're on their way.
I am done for the day.
Two already tour stage winners there. Off and up with 9 of them. Michael Matthews, Michał Kwiatkowski, Geraint Thomas. And here's the Intermarché team talking on.
For me, you don't need to sprint, but if you're anyway in the neighborhood and close, then it's always nice to take the cash for the staff.
Well, they've been listening to you all talking, haven't they?
Yeah, I guess so. That's pretty funny. But yeah, it's just something. I mean, I've never heard the directors say go for the cash, but why not? You know.
Well, it's Netflix now. It's become a game show as well. Deary me. Welcome back, everybody. A very warm welcome for those of you just joining us.
Food's main priority.
30 riders are up the road today.
See you tomorrow.
And this is the virtual points classification
I
standing
may be on Drummond. I don't know. We'll see.
And he's looking good as
But we'll
long
go
as
eat.
he stays on the bike and in the race.
I'll be back
all the
maybe.
way to Nice.
If not,
Philipson's in
tomorrow.
second. Kokal sits in third.
I think 2-hour ride tomorrow. We'll see.
And this is the back of the breakaway. I have to double check because it's so big. Just look up the line to make sure we're looking at the right group. But yes, Alexander Mbudu's in here. Movistar with 3 riders. And I wonder when that